Welcome back to the podcast. And today I am joined by the wonderful Jono Lancaster. Jono is a huge advocate for self-acceptance and self-love. And today we are going to be having a really honest conversation around identity, confidence, and what it actually feels like growing up feeling different. Jono, welcome to the podcast. And thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Oh, no, thank you for reaching out and inviting me to have these conversations, because not only are they important for other people to hear, I actually get a lot out of it myself. Just like healing work by just talking aloud about stuff. So, no, absolutely thank you for inviting me along.
So, John, if we jump straight into it, you have a book called Not All Heroes Wear Capes, and you talk about growing up feeling rejected. What did that actually feel like day to day for you?
That's a good question. It's something, as a child, I didn't really realize the impact of what happened with my birth parents really had on me until later on in life, and I've had to reflect the earliest things, because I've always known that I was adopted, and it was always celebrated. And I would tell all my friends that my mum went to the hospital, and out of all the babies there, my mum chose me. And they're like, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" And I was like, "Yeah, that's so cool." And so I've always known that. But alongside me celebrating that, what also used to happen is when I'd have friends over or family would visit, every time they left the house and said goodbye, I would get butterflies in my tummy and I'd feel sad. And I never understood why I was feeling sad, why I was feeling nervous, why my tummy was in knots. And I can remember feeling like that from the youngest of days. And then a few years ago, I was in America traveling, and I met some children that were also in a similar situation to myself, and it came to say goodbye. And one of the children began to get really upset, and she explained about feeling sad. And I spoke to her guardian at the time, and I was like, "What's going on? Everything okay?" And she's like, "Yeah, goodbyes are really hard." And then I had this light bulb moment of like, "Oh my God, I used to feel like that too as a child." So yeah, goodbyes have always been difficult, and rejection, not being invited, being picked last at football, and then, obviously as relationships break down, I found them really, really difficult. Yeah, it had a huge impact on me in lots of different ways, and it's still something that I still have to manage now.
You touched on the subject that you were given up at birth. Can you talk to us more about that?
Yeah. So my paperwork that I have from Wakefield Social Services has everything there, all those questions of what happened, why it happened, and I'll never truly know. And during in that paperwork, yeah, it says that I was left at hospital upon birth, and yeah, my birth parents decided that we needed to go our separate ways. So yeah, that was a start to life.
But it's got a really beautiful ending because at 2 weeks old, you met wonderful Jean. Do you want to explain more about Jean and what happened?
Yeah. So at the time, Jean was in her 40s. Her own children had grown up and on the verge of moving out. She'd divorced a cheating husband. She lived in a council house, and she opened up her home to children that needed care, that needed a family. Social services introduced her to me when I was 2 weeks old, and Jean's always told me that she was just excited to meet me. And when she first saw me, she couldn't help but smile. When she first held me, she just felt this instant connection, this bond. And later that day, took me back to her house. And then over a 5-year period, she tried to reconnect me with my birth parents. That didn't work out. And I was adopted when I was 5. So yeah, very blessed having a second chance of a family and a home. So yeah, she's absolutely big hero. All the family are just huge heroes to me.
Jono, do you remember the first time that someone made you feel different?
Growing up, I have a visible difference. All the kids that my mum fostered, we all had differences, but that became our norm. Some had special shoes, some had wheelchairs, some had more behavioural needs that needed support. I had my hearing aids. I had my little Bart Simpson ears that didn't get cold in winter and never popped. I didn't think that was a bad thing, I was just like, oh, we've all got our own little unique stance. This is just amazing.
Yeah.
And that story that I used to share about my about my mum going to the hospital and choosing me. Oh my God, this is so cool. As I got older, I started to share that story, but the reaction from the children was changed. It was like, your parents left you because you look like that. Or I was also born on Halloween. You were born on Halloween. That's why you look like that. And there were these few little jokes early on that started to creep in. And I was like, okay, this is only happening to me. Nobody else is having, especially going into high school. I think it was all kind of reinforced in high school. Nobody else was having surgeries. Nobody else was having, all the health appointments that I needed. And then I started looking at faces. In fact, in primary school, I had a friend called Woody.
Woody.
Woody, yeah, he was called Woody. Woodford, his second name, was called Woody. And
Okay.
we used to play football in the playground, and the bell would ring, and we would all line up in our classes. And I remember, because I got told off, I was stood behind Woody, and I was staring at his ears, and I was touching his ears and his outer ear, and I was just like amazed with his ear. I'm like, just like, oh my God, this is what a proper ear looks like. I was just like engrossed in it. And my teacher was like, he made this comment of like, something about like you fancy him or something, just leave him alone. Is he not your boyfriend, or save that for later? And I got really, really embarrassed. But innocently, that was one of the first times when I kind of recognised something, that I was missing there. So yeah, that's something that's popped into my head.
It's you mentioned as well that we can create stories, can't we, in our minds? And when you're so young, it's quite hard to really understand what's going on. And so I can imagine when you're very young, you wouldn't feel different, you feel like everyone else. But it's the inner dialogue created and also the stories that are told to you, i.e. if children are saying things to you like, oh, your birth parents didn't want you because of how you look. I'm sure at some point you would endow that information and actually start to believe it. And is there a time when something like that happened, when someone actually made you feel different?
I remember walking home from, school. I was popular at school, and I've always had incredible friends. To this day, I still have the same friendship group. And me and another friend were walking home, and we got to the chippy, and a group of older lads started chanting toffee. It's the most stupid thing, just toffee, toffee, toffee. I just went straight over my head. I have no idea why they were shouting it. And me and my friend walked past. And I was like, dude, do you know why they're shouting toffee? And my friend, he got really awkward, and he was like, oh, they think your hearing aid looks like a toffee sweet, so they shout toffee at you. And
Oh,
I was so embarrassed because he knew what was going on and I didn't. And I was like, oh, he already knew that. He'd heard it or he'd experienced it before. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
what else am I missing on? I think one of the things that I was so pure and I was so innocent to some of the trauma that I was experiencing in life, and the impact that it was having on me. So yeah, that was an early childhood memory that I really struggled to navigate, because he still is one of my closest friends. Just thinking that I still get like embarrassed about it, and sad about it. So yeah.
Did you feel that you didn't belong anywhere because you had all of this going on and all of this negativity around you, apart from obviously Jean, who constantly and consistently showed you love and support? But did you ever feel that there was a time when you felt like you didn't belong?
Belonging was hard, and it's gone through phases for me. I was just innocently unaware of everything, and I was just happy, and I had friends. And then as I got a little bit older, I've still all had that same love around me. But I felt I was in this little bubble, and nobody could fully penetrate my bubble. And I was living life within this protective bubble, and I wasn't fully experiencing things, and I wasn't fully allowing people to connect with me. I was like, oh wait, there was always walls or this protective bubble keeping me what I thought was safe. And it was just
Yeah.
isolating myself. And then as I got older, late teenage years, I really, when friends started getting into relationships and it's all about being cool and being attractive, and that never really happened for me in a relationship or somebody finding me attractive. And then I started looking everywhere for role models or representation of hearing aids or visible differences, and I didn't find anything. And I just really began to question where I belonged, and because I certainly didn't belong in this world. And then I all of a sudden, the thought of death and dying just became a regular thought process of mine of like, how am I going to die? When am I going to die? And then there were phases where I hoped I would die in a tragic accident because I just didn't know how to navigate life with all this feeling and all this emotion.
And that feeling of not being able to process it when you're so young as well, it's confusing. But the other thing as well, Jono, is that, we talk about this sense of belonging, like where do we fit in and where do we belong? There's this, people love to put people in boxes, don't they? And they stereotype but I think it goes back to we are all unique in our own way, and therefore we belong exactly where we're supposed to be, which is here in ourselves, happy, secure, full of self-love. But we grow up idolizing popular culture, movie stars, people aesthetically, looking how they look, making those types of comparisons. And certainly, I don't know, in the movies, you always have the villains who they sort of paint them in a certain picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, the good example or the most common example is James Bond. James Bond, a good guy. And then the villain would always have a visible difference, whether it be a scar, whether it be a burn. There was no positive representation out there. And the more I talk about life, I realize how lucky I am with my friends. I had no boundaries. I was a people pleaser. In order for me to belong in a friendship group or a relationship, I had to be extra. Because if I looked like this, I have to be extra. I have to be more. If that stupid saying, "You've got a face only a mother could love," and I'm like, "Oh, that doesn't even apply to me." So I felt like I had to do more, and I would get into a lot of trouble, and I would, Jono, I dare you to do that. Okay. I felt like I had to earn a ticket into any friendship group, and I had so many friends who were like, "Dude, you're just one of the boys." And
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just one of the boys. I'm just one of the lads. And even today, like we're all 40, 41 now, all my alt lads, and they were like, "What's the big deal about you? You're just Jono." And I was like, "Too right, I'm just Jono." So yeah, I am very lucky that not only I had my mum and family, but friends as well that just kept on reinforcing that I belonged. I'm one of the boys, I'm one of the lads, and that was huge.
There's a great saying which I really love. Someone said this to me once, and I've always remembered it. And it's how we see ourselves is not how others see us. We can create stories in our minds of how we perceive people to think about us, but sometimes it's not actually true. But if you're surrounded by bullying and negativity, especially growing up as a child, that will definitely make you feel a certain way, and you'll endow that and you'll start to believe it. And then it's hard to then shift those beliefs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've done a lot of inner child work, and one of the things that I say to my inner child is I say sorry for letting all the outer voices become our inner voice, and that's one of the things where I didn't do it intentionally, but that is something where I failed myself because my inner voice became the words of the bullies, the words of the negative comments. And once that inner voice is so dark and so negative, it's very hard to get out of that.
What would you say hurt most growing up? Would you say it was how people treated you, or would you say it hurt more seeing yourself? Like, which of the two would you say was hurt the most?
What hurt the most growing up? I don't think I can. I've spoken a lot about trauma in my life and in conversations and with professionals as well. I wouldn't say that anything was more than the other. It was all just a shit show.
Yeah,
It was all
yeah,
just,
yeah, yeah.
and I can reflect back and depending on the season, depending on the mood I'm in, depending on whatever's going on in life, I can say, "Oh, that felt the worst." And then there's other times of the year when I can say, "That felt the worst." It's like, what's your favorite song? It's impossible
Yeah,
to
yeah.
answer. It kind of changes with whatever's going on in your life.
When going back to the adoption conversation, when did you first learn that you were adopted?
I've always known I was adopted. When I was adopted, it was announced in the newspaper, a little section. Congratulations to the Lancaster family adopting Jonathan. And then we always would have a party every year on the 18th of May. So I always got two parties. It's something that I grew up, I'm a spoilt kid with two parties, two sets of toys and presents, do lots of cake. So yeah, it's something that I've always known.
I love that. You get two birthdays, and I think that's just a wonderful way to really celebrate and make you feel really positive because it is really positive. Jean's your mum. She's cared for you your whole life. She's supported you and loved you unconditionally, and she might not be your biological mother, but I don't really think that matters. She's your mother. That's it.
100%. I have never, ever felt any differently towards her. And I'm so lucky that I had that consistency of her and my brother and sister. They were all a team, the whole family were. And yeah, they just gave me the best foundation. They're my family.
Yeah. In your 20s, you decided you would like to try and find your birth parents. You're obviously going through all these different challenges. At that time in your life, you were doing a lot of inner work as well. And then what was the driving force for that? How did you get to that decision? I would like to meet my birth parents.
I have always thought about my birth parents. Always. Sometimes with love, sometimes with anger and confusion. I created characters and backstories for them both. I justified why I was adopted and why they'd left me there. I defended them. I went through every emotion. And then by the time I was in my 20s, I was in a really, really good place professionally, romantically, wise, with my family. Everything was just good. I felt in a very safe and secure place. And I thought, you know what? Ultimately, I want to let them know that I was okay. Um, so I accessed my records through a charity after Adoption UK, and they helped me get my records. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. Let's reach out to them, let them know that I was okay, and that I was open to meeting them. So yeah, I did it when I felt I was in a good place with good people around.
And then when you learn from the adoption agency, they reached out to your biological parents and said that you would like to meet with them.
Mhm.
And then when you learned that you were told that they didn't want to meet you, how did you process that? How did that make you feel?
I've always struggled with rejection. And the adoption agency were absolutely incredible because upon accessing my records, they were like, reading your records, the chances of this being a positive outcome, we can't see that. They did make
Okay.
it very clear that this was a clean break. And I was like, okay, we can try, but already, and as a person, I naturally talk to myself and I go through conversations. I role play situations before they happen. I always have done. So I was like already preparing myself for them saying no, or it wasn't being a positive outcome. And also as a child, I kind of grew up thinking that good things didn't happen to me. So I was kind of prepared for it, but I wasn't prepared for it at the same time because it still hurt. Um,
Yeah, of course.
and my mum and my partner at the time was like, they were so angry. And I remember myself defending my birth parents, like, no, they did it for
Aw.
themselves. I've always found myself defending them. Um, Whereas now, I have no idea what they were feeling, no idea why they did it. The only thing I know is that they gave me life, and it's down to me to fill my life with love and adventure, and I do. But yeah, it hurt then, and there are still moments, even now years later, where there is a sadness there, and there's a sometimes grief there as well. It's yeah, a lot of emotions with it.
You and I spoke about this, didn't we, earlier? That sometimes, you can build up stories along the way in terms of before, with your parents, for example, what they might be like, what they could be like, all of these types of things. And it's about finding the answers as well to those. It's like the missing piece of a puzzle. So it must have felt that that part is never going to be answered, right?
No, no. And I've spoken to a lot of people that have contacted their birth parents, and they have said to me sometimes it's better that they remain that character that you created in your head because
Yeah.
in reality they may not be.
Yeah.
as ideal as you make out them to be, you know? So it's when it comes to the family and parents and adoption and fostering, it's just an emotional roller coaster. It's just, and it's something that's always going to stay with me. It's just, yeah, it's just something that's always going to stay with me. So I make sure I talk about it. However I'm feeling, I allow myself to feel that. So, yeah.
You know, one of the many things I love about you, Jono, is your approach to situations and your mindset and your outlook. And you said earlier that I wanted to just reach out to them to let them know I'm okay. And then earlier you and I spoke as well. So, you know, you think about them, you send them love, you know, there's forgiveness from your side, which is not easy to do, is it? I'm sure there's been like you mentioned earlier, there's been times where you feel that resentment or there's some anger there. But to come from a place of love and forgiveness is actually, it's not an easy thing to do.
It's something that I've worked really, really hard on because I found myself when I carried hate around for my birth parents, for my face, for the world. I was just so hateful and so angry. The only person that affected was myself. And I became a bad person. I did things that I shouldn't have done. I got into trouble with as the police. As a child, I loved setting fire to things. I was just angry.
Naughty.
Yeah, once I let go of that anger or was able to process it and I had a safe place for it to go through conversations,
Yeah.
I was a much better person for it.
Was there a time that you remember where you thought, I really just don't like myself?
Yeah, right now, off the top of, because again, you can ask me this question and it's like something will pop up into my head. There's a shopping centre in Meadowhall and sorry, a shopping centre in Sheffield called Meadowhall, and I just watched Cruel Intentions and the
I
lead
used to
character.
love that movie.
Brilliant film, right? So the main male character, he's got a long coat and a pocket watch. And I was like, oh my God, I need that long coat. I need a pocket watch. If I get that, I'm going to be cool and people are going to are going to like me. I was always justifying ways of how to be cool. So I went to Meadowhall to find a pocket watch. And I remember going into this small shop that sold sunglasses and watches, almost like a pop-up one. It wasn't one that was permanently there. It was like a sunglasses hook kind of place. And I
Yeah.
walked in and there was two young girls stood behind the counter serving me. And as soon as they saw me, they both started laughing and ran into the back. And I just stood there and one of them came back out and started laughing again and ran back out. And it was just a moment where I'm like, oh, I'm going to be so cool. I'm going to get this pocket watch and I'm going to be so cool and everything's going to be
Yeah.
okay. And then all of a sudden you just got a reality check just so instantly and so unexpectedly and so in your face. It was like, oh shit, this is not there's not an easy way out of this. There's not an easy, so yeah, that in my teenage years, that instantly comes to mind right now of, yeah, that really hurt,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
People are just horrible sometimes.
People are horrible.
Yeah, they are. Whoever those two girls are, we don't like you. Look, I've read your book, so all the questions I'm asking you, I already know most of them. But I remember there's a chapter in your book, and it was talking about there were moments where you kept wishing that you looked different.
Yeah, yeah, it started off so innocently as well. In my bedroom, I would push my eyes up just to see what it'd look like if I looked like everybody else. And then as I got angrier and more upset and more hateful towards my face, I would just stand there for ages, just hoping that some kind of muscle memory would kick in and just be able to make a little bit of a change. Yeah, yeah, the relationship with my face has been a lifetime of work in progress.
Well, you know, we're going from Jono who doesn't like his face, and actually in your words in the book you hated your face. Jono who felt the abandonment side of things from, you know, being adopted, to which this part I love. And there was a moment, wasn't there, when you were working in the gym and it wasn't in the gym. Okay. What was the part where you I don't want to give too much away because I love it if you could tell it, where, you know, you were getting your confidence back and you're starting to finally accept yourself and actually really love yourself. Can you talk to us about that? Because we've spoken about all the negativity, but you've built your confidence now, and I'd love you to share that part of your story, and then we can build on how you did that.
Yeah. So from a period of 20, 21, 22. There was a period of my life. My friends went, I didn't go to university. I made it through college, kind of isolated myself through college, struggled through college. We're in a unhealthy relationship. That ended. And it's like, what is after college? And my friends were going on holiday, first jobs, proper relationships, and I were kind of going nowhere. But in space of a year or two, I found myself working in a bar, front of house, just kind of ripped the plaster off. I am stood in front of drunk people, living
Uh,
life.
yeah.
And I'd lost hope on humanity at that point, but slowly but surely, I started meeting people that changed my life. You know, I met a guy in the bar who just openly one night, while like, what would you like to drink? He was like, what happened to your face? And I was like, what would you like to drink? And you're like, no, what's that in your head? Pointing to my hearing aid. And I was like, it's my hearing aid. I can't hear without it. And he was like, oh, dude, you're so lucky. I wish I had an hearing aid. And I was like, why? And he's like, oh, I've got a wife at home and she's so friggin' good. As soon as she comes home from work, she starts talking at me and I'd just do anything to be able to turn an hearing aid off. And I laughed and I was like, I do that all the time, mate. And then something amazing happened. He was like, what's your name? I was like, my name's Jono. Shook my hand, had a couple of drinks, we cheersed and off he went. And it was, I didn't realize it at the time, but I needed that more than anything because for starters, I realized it was okay to talk about my face. People are curious, not in a nasty way, they're curious. And actually people find something, my hearing aid, a fun thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Later on, you know, I started dating. And then after dating, that gave me a bit of confidence because I thought this was unattractive and unlovable. Who's going to want to be with this? But yeah, I was proved wrong in a beautiful way. And then, yeah, I found myself working in a gym. I always did a late shift at the gym at 3 till 10 on a Tuesday. And I always had, you know, here in the UK, everybody can lift weights, but they can't put them away. So it was always down to me to put the dumbbells away before we closed up. And at that time, I was 20 years old and I hated looking in the mirror. I hated looking in the mirror. Always avoid seeing my reflection. At 20 years old, I was obsessed with trainers. I would have spent all my money on trainers and clothes. And so I'm putting away the weights and I see my trainers that I've just bought, some Adidas Stan Smiths, collaboration with music artists. So I had
I
some,
remember Stan Smiths.
yeah. So I had some purple and orange Missy Elliott ones.
Amazing.
And they were amazing. And I'm like, oh my God, I love my shoes. I'm wearing my little rugby shorts. I've been on sunbed and I was like, oh my God, I've got a nice set of legs. Checked my butt out and I was like, oh,
Period.
I've got a cute butt. I'm wearing an extra small t-shirt. I had trained chest and I was like, oh, look at my chest today. And normally I stop here because I don't want to see this. But that night I was on a roll, trainers, legs, butt, chest, and I accidentally saw my face. And I'd not seen my face properly in a long time. And I leant in and I looked at my eyes and I saw that my eyes were blue. And I was like, and that sounds absolutely stupid. My eyes
No,
have
it
always
doesn't.
been blue, but I was like, oh my God, look at how blue my eyes are. And I smiled. And as I smile, I've got one dimple. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I'd accidentally found two things that I loved about myself. Like, not what I'd bought, not what I'd lifted,
Yeah.
pure, authentic self-love and things that I'd found that I'd lost for so many years. And I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. So yeah, 20-year-old lad just in a gym, face to face, you know,
Love
right
it.
next to a mirror, just smiling at himself. It was absolutely huge for me. And now I continue to find more things that I love about myself. And yeah, absolutely game changer.
How did that make you feel when you had that moment? 'Cause that's a big moment.
It gave me a little bit of a swagger. You know, I was just, hey, I'm all right, me. You know, it was just like, hey, I'm all right. I'm a bit of all right. Just a little bit, you know, just a little bit of something. I still hadn't made it. I still wasn't who I am today, but it was just, because I used to look at my feet all the time. I used to hate making eye contact with people. I used to, again, those boundaries and that people pleasing, that was still a big part of my life. I was very giving. I was giving in every kind of relationship. Whereas when I had that little bit of self-love, I was able to say no. I was able to say, I don't want to do that. Just like little things like that were just huge. I was obsessed with I would dehydrate myself, and I would only eat a very strict diet of chicken and vegetables because if my face ain't all that, my body needed to be amazing.
Jono.
But when I found that self-love for my face, I allowed myself to eat donuts and ice cream and drink beer and stuff. So just
Good.
that little bit of self-love allowed me to do so many other things in life that I was denying myself of. It was just huge, absolutely huge.
It's all psychological, isn't it? How we feel about ourselves, that can really filter out into our daily interactions, into how we set boundaries. I remember reading in your book and I felt really upset reading it actually. And I know that the Jono in the gym who's like, posing in the mirror with your six pack and your tan. Because I know you said you used to use sunbeds back then. You had confidence. There was also a time when you mentioned that you were in the car, you liked this particular girl, and she would call you. And this evening, she called you at like 2 a.m. in the morning. And, we're going back to people pleasing here. And at that time, you were people pleasing. And she asked you if you would pick her up at 2 a.m. So you kindly offered to do that. And then when you did go to pick her up, she was with a guy. And she asked you if you could drop her at his house. Now I can tell you right now, Jono in the gym, who's standing there with his confidence, would have said, "I'm not picking you up."
Yeah. That was my first ever speeding ticket.
I know.
Yeah, I really, really like this girl. And yeah, and they both got in the back seat as well. And yeah, dropped them off. And then they both left, and I sped to home, whatever, and got my first speeding ticket. But yeah, that summed me up. That summed me up. And yeah, not a good example for myself.
It's just because it's about if you're feeling so low and you've got all of this low energy, these low vibrations, naturally, you're not then going to set boundaries for yourself. You feel that you have to overcompensate to be enough. You have to people please to be enough. When the minute you tap into yourself and the minute you actually stand in the minute you are your true authentic self, is actually when you attract the best things.
That's so, so true. The more I have loved myself and celebrated myself, the more good things that I have attracted, 100%. And the more I recognize things that aren't good for myself as well.
Yeah. I have a question for you. Do you think feeling different is something everyone experiences in some way, even if it's not visible?
Yes, in today's world, I think every single one of us, with what's going on, with all the divide, with all the hate, with all the negativity, I think we all can feel different and othered at some point in our life, for sure.
What would you say to someone who feels not enough because of how they look? Big one.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, save the best till last, Jono.
Yeah. You've got to talk about it. When you start talking about things and you start staying with these feelings, because you don't want to stay with these feelings because they're awful. But I've always put it, I heard this, nobody wants to sit in shit, and these feelings are shit. But the more you stay there, you can turn that shit into manure, and good things can grow from the manure. So when you start sitting in these feelings, why am I feeling like this? How long am I feeling like this? When do I feel like this more? When do these feelings go away a little bit? When do I feel better about myself? What environments do I feel safe in? What people do I feel safe around? When you start sitting with all this stuff, you can start working out what's going on and why things are going on. So sit with these feelings and talk about these feelings, whether it be with a professional, whether it be a friend, and then you'll start to do a lot of processing. And then throughout it all, be super kind to yourself. Eat the foods that you enjoy, drink the drinks that you enjoy, move your body how you like to move, sing your favorite songs, watch your favorite films, smile, laugh, just be super kind to yourself.
I love that so much. If you could speak to your younger self, Jono, what would you tell him? There's a bit of a story around this anyway, so we can mention obviously what we spoke about earlier. Over to
So
you.
I so through recent years, I've spent a lot of time really talking to my younger self. And the thing that I keep on that regularly comes up is we attract good things, whether it be people, whether it be moments, whether it be memories, we attract, and we've always attracted beautiful things, beautiful people. Because there were times when I was like so obsessed or so focused on like, oh, I need to work through this rejection. We reject. Nobody's going to find me attractive. I need to people please. I need to earn these friendships. So being able to sit down and tell my younger self now, we attract good things. That's
And then I think that's so important, by the way. You know, we talked about your younger self and how you would speak to your younger self. I know that you did some inner child work and you found that really useful to have conversations with your younger child. Would you mind sharing that story?
Yeah. So I came out, I had an unexpected breakup. Everything was going amazing. Then I had this unexpected breakup and it hurt. It really, really hurt. Breakups do hurt.
Yeah, of course.
I spoke to somebody who is somebody very special to me in my life. He's a therapist. He does medicine. He's a body coach. He's just magical. And
Wow.
he knew everything about me and my upbringing. And he was like, okay, we need to do some work with your inner child here. I want you to imagine your younger self. Some people use a photo, but just try and imagine them. And for myself, I got one of my old teddies that I grew up with and I put one of my old t-shirts on him. And this teddy became Little J. And he was like, right, once you've got Little J with you, ask him how you used to make him feel when you used to say these unkind things, or when you were going through, when you were pushing your eyes up, and listen to Little J and then ask him, what does he need right now? And so I started going through all this, and I really, it's heavy work. You've got to be prepared for it. It's very emotional. And that relationship with Little J just kind of evolved, and I regularly talk with Little J. And then I went to a psychic last year, and the psychic, the medium, was like, who are the two J's? Because at the moment, they're separating and they need to become one. And I was like, I've spent
Wait,
so it's serious. I was like, he was like, they need to become one, and I'm like, oh my god, maybe I've just like split them up so because I have an obsessive personality. So I was like, little J, little J, little J, little J, and I'm like, now we need to come back together, and we are one. Yeah, that inner child work in recent times was so healing, so healing. And I really, really needed.
inner child work is really quite challenging, but like you said, it's so healing. But you're a massive advocate for self-acceptance and self-love. What does that mean to you, self-acceptance and self-love?
We live in a world, we've discussed it, where everybody's like, you've got to fit into this box. You've got to look a certain way. You've got to dress a certain way. You've got to follow this trend. And it's a load of sort of bollocks. It's just it's not helpful whatsoever. Or you'll see these social media videos of like, what you're wearing today. Just wear things that you enjoy. It's just everybody's trying to tell you to be somebody and something that you're not. And we all have these beautiful, unique stamps on our faces, on our bodies, on our personalities. And right now, the world's telling you to hide them, or you should be embarrassed about them and you should cover them up. No, you should celebrate them. You should love them, and you should feel comfortable at least being able to talk about them. And the more you do, the more you will attract what's right for you as well. And the world needs it more than ever. The world needs you to celebrate your authentic self. 100% believe that.
I mean, listen, it's amazing what you just said, and I'm a big believer in that. And I think we, especially in today's world with social media and the younger generation, it's really sad how everyone's trying to look like everyone else. The mental health, suicide rates with younger children, it's terrible. And it needs more of these types of conversations to make it more normal, just to be your authentic self and just to sort of stand in your own power and just be yourself, because there's something really, really beautiful in that. But it's sometimes not easy to get there. And I know that you've done so much work on yourself, Jono, and you've done so many things, to help, with self-acceptance and self-love. What tips could you share that really helped you, that people listening would be able to follow to, maybe accept a part of themselves that they don't really like? It might be visible, it might not be visible, and to really step into the power of, waking up every day and, really loving who they are. Now, I know we have bad days, we all have bad days, but really something that, for the most part, they can really use just to really feel like I really love myself.
There's a lot of work that goes into it, and I can give you a lot of big, complex, fancy answers, but we all can start with some basics. So make sure we wake up on a morning and we make sure that we don't straight away look at our phone. The first thing that you don't want to see is social media or work emails or the news. Just be alone with your thoughts is absolutely huge. Have some positive affirmations. Tell yourself on a morning you're going to be kind to yourself. You're going to get some sunlight on your beautiful skin. You're going to eat some food. You're going to drink some fluids that are going to make your body work and function the best it can possibly be. That's very, very basic, but all those things are key just to naturally feeling a little bit better. And then from there, when we were talking about everybody looking the same, like whether it be makeup, whether it be beauty treatments, whether it be fashion, whether it be clothes, whatever it is, that's all okay. If that makes you feel good, that's all okay. The problem for me is when those things become a dependency. And the sunbed, my strict diet, my dehydrating myself, constantly wearing designer clothes, I had to do those things before I left the house. And they became a dependency. They weren't things that I no longer enjoyed. Whereas now, I enjoy dressing up. I enjoy dressing up in my own unique style. I enjoy going to the gym, but I also enjoy cake. So doing things that you enjoy is hugely important. And then that self-talk. That self-talk is so important. When I was at the gym or when I was playing football and I needed a little bit of a motivation or adrenaline rush, I would think about my birth parents. They left you in hospital, mate. Come on, show them. And I'd get so angry and I'd lift more or I'd tackle or I'd hit the ball harder or I'd run a little bit faster. And all of a sudden, I would use that constantly on a daily basis as fuel, as motivation, but it became so heavy and it just became my regular talk. Whereas now
Yeah.
when I want to motivate myself, like, we're fast, we're strong, we can do this,
Yeah.
we can lift. Your body is amazing. We've done
Yeah.
so much. Just changing that as well. It is a long road to accepting yourself, but by making the daily habits that anybody can do is huge. Is huge. Later on down the line, that there's therapy, there's interacting with people with lived experiences, similar lived experience. That helps. There's loads of things that you can do further down the line, but to start off, there's some good basics there.
Would you say, last question, because I know you need to go, but would you say that since you've done all of that work, and I know obviously you've been doing this, and by the way, the work always, we still have to do the work, but would you say that you notice a significant shift in how you felt, how you saw yourself and everything around you? Would you say you saw a change after you started really feeling in your own, I really love myself, I'm really proud of myself?
Yeah. Literally every aspect of my life has become healthier, has become better. My relationships have become healthier. My thought process around my birth parents has become more grounded. I'm not constantly in fight or flight anymore. I'm calm. I have peace. And that's huge. When people talk about what makes a successful person, going to bed on a night with a calm body that's success to me. And don't get me wrong, Even this week, I couldn't sleep. I had a million thoughts going on in my head just because I had a work project I wanted to do well. So I don't always get it right. It is an ongoing journey. I still have social anxiety, but I never lose that self-love. I never ever lose that self-love. And I'll see myself on social media or when I watch this back and I'm like, hey, the boy's done good. These are him. And yeah, that's huge.
It's I mean, don't even you and I speak about social media. Social media can be really great in connecting and sharing stories and learning things, but there's also a side to it which can be really nasty and quite dark, with trolls and things like that. So it's I know that you've experienced that as well. You said that you see yourself on social media, and I know that obviously you've seen some negative parts around that as well.
So media is just this juggernaut that got unleashed onto the world, and we all had to kind of react and how to learn to live with it in real time. It came with no
Yeah.
warning. It was just go deal with it. And so we opened up Pandora's box, and it was like, what the fuck? So
Yeah.
it is, and I feel so blessed that I had a childhood without social media because there was already
Same.
pressure on me, and I was already struggling throwing social
Yeah.
media, and I have experienced trolls and people using my image in a negative way. But there is also a lot of good from
So
social
much
media. I
good.
think the scary thing with social media is everybody has a voice, and anybody can listen to any of these voices, and they can start believing it, and then the algorithms will start kicking in, and then they'll reinforce these beliefs, and it can lead you down a path. And if you're somebody that's in a vulnerable state of mind, you can be led down a path that you don't want to be led down, that can lead you to dangers. So yeah, be careful. And when we talk about self-acceptance, and I talked about recognizing people and environments that are healthy for you, that goes with social media. Hello, anybody or choose to ignore the functions. I don't want to see this if it makes you feel any less of a person.
That's such good advice. The amount of times that, people can see things and then it just makes them feel really bad about their lives, like, or just not that great about themselves. Such good advice. Unfollow those accounts, guys, or pause those stories.
Yeah.
It's really important. It's such a bit, it's there on your phone. So it can be intrusive. It's also limiting your time on social media. Jono, I don't want to take up any more of your time. All I want to know is, I know you've got the book, people can buy your book online, can't they?
Yeah,
I
they
mean, I'm
can.
late on this train 'cause I know the book came out a while ago, but it's a great book. I really enjoyed reading it. Where can people find your book? Not All Heroes Wear Capes.
Yeah, they can listen to me do the audio version on audible.com. And then every bookstore where they buy their books from, and they can purchase the book. So yeah, it's a bit of a memoir with some self-help guides in there as well. I'm talking about literally everything: rejection, friendships, coping mechanisms, love, celebrating who we are, dodgy bowl cuts and embarrassing stories. So there's something in there for everybody.
I really, really enjoyed reading it because as much as, these conversations, they can be quite heavy. There were certain elements throughout the book where you're making jokes, and for some, this is what I love about you. You find the humor in situations, and it just makes it a bit lighter just by being yourself, John. I already mentioned I started this podcast with the opening that you're a huge advocate globally for self-acceptance and self-love. And I'd like to thank you for that, because by you sharing your story on this platform and other platforms, it helps so many people, whether you have a visible difference or not. Just by sharing stories can just be a tremendous help. Jono, what are you up to next in terms of projects?
Oh, that's a good. Thank you so much for that compliment as well. I've always struggled receiving compliments. So one of the things I've been working on is just receiving them and putting them in my pocket. Because normally in the
Good.
past I've tried to deflect them or felt the need to give you a compliment back, but I'm going to receive it. So thank
Receive
you.
it.
Thank you. What's next? What's next? I've got a lot of travel coming up. Working with many organizations in Brazil, in America, in Africa, which I'm excited about. Continue to, everywhere I go, eat all the food. That's just my absolute favorite thing to do. I've fallen out of love with exercise at the moment. I'm having a lot of words with myself to be more active, so that's going to happen more. And there's a few other things behind the scenes that we're working on as well. Some new projects. So yeah, and if they give us a follow, they'll be able to keep all up to date with all my rambling.
You're just being your amazing self, and I think it's so wonderful. Jono, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode. I've really enjoyed our conversation. And if the listeners would like to get in touch with you, shall I link your Instagram below so they can give you a follow?
Yeah, that'd be absolutely cool. I have a really nice community on my Instagram page. The comments are really supportive of one another. There's a lot of reflection on my page. And yeah, what am I doing next? I'm out there living my life, however it comes.
As you should be. Yeah. Well, Jono, thank you so much, and let's stay in touch. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Yes, thank you so much, Sasha, for having me and conversations. Yes, let's have more conversations.